that. Louder man, front to the back, here we go, I got them shouting that. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go, Brownies. Stand up. Here we go, Brownies. Let's go. Game on the line, Joe Thomas, I promise. Jim Brown running through opponents, how I got this. I return like Josh Cripps. Hand for the mini, got the dog pound jumping. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go, Brownies. Stand up. Here we go, Brownies. Let's go.
Cleveland! This is for you!
Well, everyone, welcome to another edition of the Here We Go Brownies podcast from downtown Cleveland, Ohio. Tonight, we're going to have a jam-packed show. Allie is on sabbatical this week. She's in Vegas. Rough life, right? We all have full-time jobs, so she's out in Las Vegas with her company. But Russell Johnson with the National Football High School Hall of Fame is going to join us to talk about all the amazing things that are going to be happening down in Canton this weekend. And we are going to be blessed enough to have Tim Couch, one of those inductees that will be coming on here in a few moments to talk about him being inducted, his time with the Browns, and just catching up with him. It's been a hot minute since he's been in Ohio, but, you know, he's down there in Kentucky. But first time he's been up here in a while. But real quick, we're going to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Mr. Hero.
Mr. Hero's turning 60. We're proud to have served your favorite cravings for 60 years in celebrating what we do best. Thanks, Ohio. I crave a hero.
Mr. Heroes. I mean, who doesn't want a Mr. Hero sandwich, right? 60 years here in the greater Northeast Ohio. Check them out. We're also giving away a family 4-pack every week. So if you want to not go cook tonight at home or catch it on your way home, just go get that family 4-pack. Look for that giveaway all week. Also joining the show is 92.3 The Fans beat reporter Daryl Ryder. Know him personally, love the guy. But we're going to go ahead and bring him on before Tim Couch joins us. So welcome to the show. Daryl, how you doing?
I'm doing good, guys. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Daryl?
Slow news days for you, Daryl?
I just had some breaking Browns news, as a matter of fact.
Well, you got a live captive audience. If you want to, I know before Tim comes on here, if you want to share a little bit about our new home of the Cleveland Browns. I know this is breaking news that's been that you just put out there on the waiver wires, but talk to the people what this means for Brook Park.
Basically, the Browns are now at the goal line to receive state funding, $600 million of it from the state of Ohio to build that $2.4 billion enclosed stadium in Brook Park. The Ohio Senate passed their budget today that included that $600 million in funding. Why is that significant? Well, you have the governor, the Ohio House, and now the Senate all approving funding for this project. However, each has a different plan to do so. The governor first proposed in his budget to double the gambling companies tax in the state of Ohio from 20 to 40%, create a statewide stadium construction fund from the new 20% in proceeds, and then those monies would be dispersed at a committee's discretion. So if you had a stadium project in the state, you'd have to go to these folks and say, hey, here's what we want to do. Can we get money? Well, the Ohio House said thanks, but no thanks to the governor's plan, and went ahead and just put straight $600 million in a bonds package for the Brook Park Stadium. The Ohio Senate said no to that plan, and Ohio has a $4.8 billion unclaimed property fund that is going to be used. $1.7 billion of that will be borrowed from the fund to create a new sports facilities construction fund for the state of Ohio. $600 million of that $1.7 billion would go toward the Browns Brook Park project. That money would become available February 1st of 2026. So what happens now, because you have three different plans, There will be a conference committee. This takes place naturally in the budgetary process because the Ohio House budget, the governor's budget, and the Senate budget all have differing plans within them, not just for the Brown Stadium. A conference committee will get together. They will sort through the details. We'll get a final construct of how the Browns are going to get that $600 million. But at this point, guys, Brook Park is happening. It would be a stunning development if in conference committee, the entire stadium project gets scrapped.
Right. And you know, I've been in politics in my past, as you know, Daryl, and now it goes to that committee. And so you're right. At this point, it's a done deal. It's just a matter of the fine tuning of how they're going to get the money. So it'll be interesting. I do have one question in all your research, and I know states are different. I know there's a sunset clause at which people can claim those unclaimed funds in the account. I'm assuming Ohio is that same way. So this money basically just sits there and gains interest. What is that sunset in Ohio like? If you don't claim your money by a certain time, it just goes into that piggy bank, basically.
Yeah, I don't know the specific year, but how it has been explained to me is that after 10 years, the state can, it's called a sheetment, and the state then can escheat that money, which means basically they can take that money and use it for their own purposes. Okay. Now, how this is being put together, I ended up getting a couple bucks back. I went on the Unclaimed Funds website and got a few bucks back. First of all, I don't think that there's going to be $4.8 billion in claims made over, these coming days and weeks. If anything, though, it's a good PSA for folks to check not only for themselves, but any deceased relatives and loved ones. If you're in charge of those respective estates, you can go in and check. But here's the deal. The money that's going to be escheated in January of next year from this unclaimed fund has been sitting there for well over a decade. Right. And it was also explained to me that the state of Ohio does not receive those funds until a couple of years from these, you're talking bank accounts, insurance policies, things like that. Companies usually are sitting on that money for years as well before that money ultimately gets transferred to the state of Ohio. So this really is long lost money that has been sitting there collecting dust for well over a decade. So what they're doing is they're basically saying, since this money is doing nothing for anyone, let's go ahead and take a portion of that, because it's not just the Browns. This has been the challenge for the state. Is the Cincinnati Bengals have requested almost $400 million for their stadium. I know the Cincinnati Reds are amid a planning process for Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati. Currently, the Cleveland Guardians for the next 14 years will receive $2 million from the state of Ohio out of the general fund. That will go, that's going toward paying off the Progressive Field renovation project. So they tried to come up with a solve here that not only takes care of the Cleveland Browns and helps them out, but helps out all the professional sports teams in the state of Ohio. And so this was a very creative way that the Ohio Senate came up with a way to do it without impacting the general fund. Okay. Yep. Because there's a notion that the Browns are stealing money from education programs and other programs that help the unfortunate in the state. That's not what the Senate has done here. So the Ohio House version, you can make that argument because you're talking about $600 million in bonds, which means that money has to be paid back and it has to be financed from the state. And that debt service makes that anywhere from a $1 billion to a $1.2 billion proposition. The other thing that the Ohio Senate is doing is they are holding the Browns accountable for their tax revenue projections. And because they say, hey, they're going to be able to, with this new dome, they're going to be able to generate all these events and create all this new tax revenue. So the state of Ohio is calling their bluff, and they're requesting the team put $50 million in an escrow fund. And if the dome and the mixed-use development complex does not perform up to what the Browns have told them that it's going to, the state now can go into the escrow fund and claw out money each year to balance the books, to make sure the projection meets the state income. Now you might say, well, what happens when that $50 million is exhausted? I'm glad you asked. Another $50 million has to be put into that fund, and this will be over a 16-year process that'll happen. And so basically what the state of Ohio and the Senate has come up with is not only a plan that does not dip into any services or take away or dip into the state rating and bonds and all that kind of stuff. Basically, they're dipping into money that's collecting dust and doing nothing while still being able to pay that money back to folks if there are claims. And then also, too, holding the Browns accountable with essentially a $100 million insurance policy that the tax revenues will match what the Browns have promised.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, like you said, going in there and taking the money that had already been there 10 plus years also is not a risk to the tax holders and, you know, the citizens of the state of Ohio at the end of the day, because that is money that's just collecting interest. And at that point, that money literally is also not only helping the Browns, but the Bengals. I think there's arts and some other things in that fund that'll help projects throughout the state. But you're right. The other side was like, you're taking money from grandma, you're taking it from education, and that's clearly not the case. It is money that is already not even in the general fund or a part of any of those allocated funds. Well, Daryl, thanks for breaking news. With that, though, we're going to welcome to the show former quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, Tim Couch.
Hey guys,
Tim,
how are you?
Hey, how you
Doing great, thank you.
Tim, first and foremost, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. I can tell you fondly, when the Cleveland Browns came back in '99, I was not living in Ohio at the time. I traveled out to the new stadium and came and watched you and sat in the dog pound for that New England game, which was the second game of the '99 season. So you were the first jersey I bought as well, to root on the Browns. I think Daryl probably maybe even had a Tim Couch jersey. But first and foremost,
I did not. I was working.
That's right.
Not allowed.
Daryl Ryder, as you may know, has been covering the Browns and the media here in Cleveland for 28 years. So I'm assuming back then you were just a young buck, right, Daryl, covering the Cleveland Browns.
Tim barely remembers me, but I was there.
Yeah, I definitely remember you. Yeah, for sure. It's a long time ago, though. Yeah.
So, Tim, first and foremost, you're going to be inducted into the 2025 class of the National Football Hall of Fame this weekend in Canton. We'll be there and joining you for all the accolades. Russell Johnson is joining us from the National Football High School Hall of Fame. My first question to you is, coming back to Northeast Ohio, being honored for this, how do you feel? I mean, you've won about every award you could in the state of Kentucky for football. What does this mean to you and your family?
You know, it means a lot. You know, I think I was fortunate enough to go into the College Football Hall of Fame last year, the 2024 class, and to go into the High School Football Hall of Fame this year is it's truly an honor. You know, I mean, it definitely makes me immediately reflect back on the people that helped me get to where I was able to get to as a football player, because, you know, we played the ultimate team sport, and, you know, you never accomplish any of these things all by yourself. It's all with your teammates and the coaches that you're blessed to play with. So I'm very thankful for who I had around me in those moments, all those teammates, all those coaches that helped me become the player that I became. So I'm just very grateful and honored to go into this Hall of Fame class, and thrilled to go in with those guys in the Hall of Fame this year. It's just an unbelievable class of guys, and really looking forward to getting up there to Canton this weekend and being around the guys and seeing them and catching up. And, you know, I know a lot of these guys, a lot of them I haven't met yet. So I'm looking forward to meeting them and kind of sharing some stories and catching up a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, you get to see some of your old friends that you knew alumni-wise. Eric Metcalf's being inducted. Frank Minifield, Hanford Top Dog Dixon, as he likes to refer to, is going to be inducted. So it's going to be kind of cool that you're going in with some other Browns. I think that's super cool. But Daryl, go ahead. Shoot away. Ask a question.
Tim, I'll hit you hard. What do you think about the Browns potentially playing games in a dome, an enclosed stadium there in Brook Park, right by the airport?
Man, I wish it was there in 1999. I can tell you that. Hey, that's a tough stadium to throw in. You know, a lot of times, you know, later in the season when it gets cold, the wind's cutting off of Lake Erie right there, and you know the temperatures are about freezing. There's snow coming down. It can be a tough stadium to throw in sometimes. So a dome would be nice. I think it's going to be awesome. You know, I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm excited. You know, I've seen some of the plans. It looks amazing. You know, I know the players are going to be really excited for it. Hopefully, the fans will be too. So I think it's going to be really cool.
Go ahead, Russell.
I think the fans are super excited, Tim. we're just like, we've been waiting for this, I think, our whole lives.
I'm sure.
I got a question for you. What was it like in the moment getting a statue dedicated to you at your high school?
Yeah, you know, that was a surreal moment. You know, they put that up last year, and I was able to go back to my high school for that unveiling of the statue and talk to the kids. Gave a speech to the high school there, and got to be around the football team and you know, some things like that. So it was a great honor, you know, and hopefully, you know, I come from a small town of 350 people in Eastern Kentucky where there's not a whole lot of opportunity there. So hopefully, you know, when opposing teams come in there to play, they see that statue. The kids that are playing football there at Leslie County High School, where I played, they see that statue. Maybe it can represent something to them that they're able to go and chase their dreams, no matter where they come from, what their background is. That anything is possible as long as you're willing to put in the work, you know, and dedicate yourself to whatever it is you want to be. So that's what I hope it stands for. And you know, the statue turned out awesome. The guy did an unbelievable job on it. So I was really happy with it. It was you know, obviously an unbelievable honor. Never thought I'd have a statue, but you know, truly honored by it.
So, Tim, here's a question for you. You might have heard there's a quarterback competition in Cleveland this offseason. You know, I've talked to a lot of fans, and just being a fan and growing up and rooting for this team, you know, when you were drafted, you were kind of expected to be the dude, right? You were going to come in, you were going to be the starter. And looking back over the last, you know, 26 years and counting, to me, there's never been a real open quarterback competition that I can think of where there's any four of these guys at any given moment feel like they could kind of thrust up into that position and be the number one guy. First and foremost, have you had a chance to look at any of these guys and your thoughts on obviously any of the four, including Joe Flacco? But what do you think of this quarterback competition and kind of the Browns bringing in a veteran like Joe Flacco? And, you know, obviously they acquired Kenny Pickett from the Eagles, but just, you know, what is your thoughts on this? Because I mean, being a quarterback, I mean, I always say the eye test, right? You can look at quarterbacks, you can see it. What's your thoughts?
You know, I think it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, you know, they got a really good mix there of, you know, old veteran who's been there, done that, played a lot of football games, won a Super Bowl, and Joe Flacco. Then you got a young veteran in Kenny Pickett who's bounced around the league a little bit, but he was a former first round pick. So obviously there's some potential there. And then you got the two rookies coming in, and you know, so I haven't seen a whole lot of the rookies play. In college, I saw a few of their games here and there, but I don't know a whole lot about them. But certainly impressed with both of them from what I saw. But you know, I think it's an opportunity where, you know, maybe you start a Joe Flacco, or maybe if Kenny, you know, progresses within the system here during the offseason, you feel like he's going to be the starter week one. You got a veteran guy you can roll out there, you know, week one and get the season started. Maybe the first few weeks while you're developing these young quarterbacks behind them, and hopefully, you know, one of the young guys, you know, really kind of, you know, come up to the top. And you know, I think Shedeur Sanders is a extremely talented kid from what I've seen. I really didn't understand his slide in the draft to where he went. Was it fifth round? I guess it was. You know, I think you know, from what I saw, he has all the skill sets that are required to play the position, and throws the ball with great anticipation, great accuracy. He's athletic enough to make some plays, extend plays with his legs. So you know, and what I've seen in you know, just from, you know, the highlights that I've seen on TV and, you know, reading about how it's going in OTAs and stuff like that, it looks like Shedeur is progressing nicely and feels pretty comfortable within the system. So you know, there's some you know, there's potential there. Like you said, there's four guys you can kind of bring along, and you know, the luxury for these rookies is they don't have to play right away. You know, like you said, when I came into the league, it was kind of expected I was going to be, you know, thrown out there on an expansion team when I probably wasn't ready. The team wasn't ready, and I got beat up pretty bad. You know, I think I got sacked over 50 sometimes in that first year, and it you know, that takes a toll on you, obviously physically, but it takes a toll on you mentally as well as a quarterback. So you got some veteran guys you can put in there and bring those young guys along at a slower pace, I think. So I think that's a good thing. So we'll see how it plays out. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch. You know, over the season, how that position plays out for the Browns.
You know, I kind of thought of that thought of you when Joe Burrow came in the league and they didn't give him any offensive line protection. I'm like, they're going to kill this guy. He's got all the potential in the world, and if they don't get an offensive line, they're going to kill him. Quick question here from one of our listeners. The question is, who is your favorite wide receiver to throw to? I know that's a tough question, but who is your favorite? And then I'm going to follow up that question and kick it to Daryl. And my second part of that is, what was your welcome to the NFL moment, right? College. But what was that moment when it hit you like, whoa, I'm in the National Football League? So first that, and then what was your moment like, welcome to the National Football League, basically?
Yeah, I guess my favorite receiver in the NFL would have been Kevin Johnson. We came into the league together as rookies. He was Donovan McNabb's receiver at Syracuse. Really good football player. And we just kind of were two young guys coming into the league together, kind of figuring it out. They threw us right out there, and we were both kind of starters pretty much immediately. So, I felt really comfortable with Kevin. Kevin was a great player, had great hands, very trustworthy, productive receiver for us, for over 5 or 6 years there, however long he was in Cleveland, really good player. And I guess my welcome to the NFL moment would have been probably that opening game. I didn't start the game. Ty Detmer started the game when we played the Steelers, the first game in the Browns' new stadium, and they were just beating us to death. It must have been, I don't know what it was, 35-40 and Coach Palmer looks at me and says, "You're in." And I'm like, oh man. So of course, I go in and do something stupid on the first play, throw an interception, and I go over to make the tackle, and Joey Porter and Levon Kirkland, all those dudes they hit me so hard. I ended up under the Steelers bench over there, and they're just over top of me, telling me, screaming at me, saying words I can't repeat on here. But that was probably my welcome to the NFL moment. So
yeah, and the Steelers, of course, the rival, right? They're like, yeah, we're going to show this rookie. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Tim, how grateful though are you that you didn't come up in this particular era of social media where every little thing you do in practice or in your personal life or in a game that gets caught on camera is so scrutinized. And the reason I ask you that is, today we spoke with Joe Flacco, and he joked about, you're not going to get him on TikTok doing any dances and things like that. And Shedeur Sanders, obviously, he's a lightning rod as far as the social media attention goes. He's so popular that every little thing he does, people can't get enough Shedeur Sanders content. So how, I guess, relieved are you that, because I remember some of those times that were tough on you,
right?
But there wasn't the social media presence to even add more weight to your shoulders.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's a whole different world that these players have to navigate now with the social media. It's a whole added layer of pressure that wasn't there for us older players back in the day. We just we certainly dealt with pressure from fans and the media or whatever. But now it's like every time you pick up your phone and you've got any social media apps on there, you're probably seeing things about you, things being said about you, whether it's good or bad. And so it would be very tough. I think I probably would have kept those social media apps off my phone if I was playing today, just because there's already enough pressure there built in with the position. Playing quarterback in the NFL is one of the highest stress positions, highest that you can do in professional sports. So to add the social media piece to it, I think makes it so much tougher. And I give those guys kudos. Some guys handle it really, really well, and they embrace it, and they just kind of lean right into it, and the good and the bad. And then I think there's some other guys who weren't really comfortable with it, and I probably would have been one of the guys who wasn't very comfortable with it. I'm still not very comfortable with social media today. So, so I probably would have stayed away from it at that point, but I am certainly glad I didn't have to deal with it back in the day.
Go ahead, Russell.
Going back through your draft process, where do you think, in your mindset, where do you think you were going to get drafted? And at what point did the Browns organization communicate that you were going to be the first pick overall?
Yeah, I had a pretty good feeling it was going to be the Browns. I had a couple private workouts with them where Coach Palmer and Dwight Clark and Carmen Policy, they and Mr. Lerner, they came here to Lexington to work me out at UK's facility, and had a really, really good workout for them that day. And then we went to dinner afterwards and just kind of hit it off with those guys and really, bonded with them really well. So I felt comfortable that the Browns were going to take me. But, it's, the draft is a crazy thing. It was never sure until right before the draft, I actually ended up signing my rookie deal there at Madison Square Garden, because the Browns had said whoever they draft, whether it be me or Donovan McNabb or Ricky Williams or whoever it was going to be that year, that they didn't want to hold out, because remember back in the day, guys would come in, they would hold out and they'd restructure, they'd want to do their deals, and so they wanted the guy out there day one instead of a rookie holdout. So I ended up signing the deal right before the draft. So I literally found out just before I walked out on stage that they were actually going to do it. And obviously a dream come true, man. It's to go and your dream was always to be an NFL quarterback, to make it to that. But I didn't care how I got there, whether I just wanted a shot to be in the league. So to come into the NFL as the number one pick, man, it was overwhelming. It was life changing. It was an unbelievable moment for me and my family. One that I certainly never forget. I can remember it like it was yesterday, being back in the green room with the family, just all the emotions, all the hard work, all the years of, sacrifice and dedication and playing through injuries and everything like that. And it's just like kind of comes into that one moment where you walk out on the stage and you get that jersey from the commissioner, and, you're an NFL football player, and going to, a franchise like the Browns. I was so excited to get to Cleveland because, they'd been out of the league for 3 years, I guess it was. They came to Ravens, and this was their first year back. So I was kind of the first player, in the new franchise drafted. And, I was so excited to be a part of that organization. It was tough being on an expansion team and kind of taking the hits and those kind of things. But I was so glad to be there. I really didn't care. I just was so proud to be an NFL quarterback and having an opportunity to start for an NFL franchise. And it was, I loved it, man. I really did. I loved my time in Cleveland.
Yeah, I know you came back last year and you got to smash the guitar. That was a moment you got to come back and do that, which is always fun for former players. We'll get you out of here on a couple questions, Tim. First and foremost, some people are asking in the comments, this is one of the moments that I remember so much, but what was your biggest highlight moment in the NFL with the Browns? And for me, the Hail Mary against the Saints, where I always say the Browns have lost games in the last seconds and they've won games in the last seconds, because it's not over till it's 0-0. But what was your favorite, highest moment in your NFL career? And then second, a lot of people that are just catching up with you, what are you doing now in your life? And, what's Tim up to these days?
Yeah, I think probably the highest moments were obviously the one against New Orleans was very special to me, the Hail Mary against New Orleans, because it was our first win as a franchise in 1999. So I think we had started the season, I can't remember what it was, maybe 0-5-ish, 0-6, somewhere in there. And then we go down to New Orleans and we're playing well and we're about to win that game, and they kick a field goal with just a few seconds left. And we're like, damn, here we go again. We're going to lose another close one. And then we throw the Hail Mary and win the game. So getting your first win in the NFL like that on a play, like that, is just so rare that, you never forget that one. And, but as far as what I'm doing now, just a lot of business stuff. My brother and I, we own a wealth management company called Meridian Wealth Management. And I do some other types of investments and things like that too. I have a bourbon company now in Kentucky that we just started a couple years ago called Limestone Farm. So, just kind of dabbling in some different business stuff. But, the financial business is what keeps me busy most of the time. And I spend a lot of time out on the golf course and with my two kids. My oldest son, Chase, he plays college football at Holy Cross up around the Boston area in Worcester, Massachusetts. And then my youngest son is just a freshman in high school. So he's playing football as well. So we're doing the camp circuit and those things this summer and staying busy. So yeah, just doing some business stuff, staying busy with my family, and just living life.
Now, is there another quarterback in there? What positions do they play? Just curious.
Yeah, no, my oldest son is a defensive end. He's a big kid. I think he's around 6'5.5", 250-ish or so right now. I think he's going to be a pretty good player. And my youngest son he's a wide receiver and defensive back. So I think right now he's around 6'2" or so, maybe close to 6'3", but a good athlete. So I'm excited for both of them. They both have really good opportunities ahead of them.
There you go. Well, hey, Tim, always a pleasure. We'd love to have you back on the show again sometime.
Sure.
This was an honor to have you. All the fans are giving you a lot of love here in the comments. They're enjoying bringing it back to the rebirth of the Browns in 99. But hey, Tim, thanks for joining us. I'll see you obviously a lot this weekend. Russell is excited to have you with that induction class and catching up with all those guys.
I appreciate you guys having me on. We'll do it anytime, and looking forward to seeing you guys in Canton this weekend. Thank you.
Sounds good.
All right, appreciate it, guys. Thanks.
Well, that was Tim Couch, former quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. Daryl, that's fun catching up with guys like that we haven't seen in a while, right? I have childhood memories of, watching him and the rebirth of the Browns, because I think we were just clamoring to have a football team and any kind of person that we could enjoy and watch play football. And I mean, he was that was the guy I went to go see, like I said, in that second game. But Daryl, let's shift gears a little bit. You were out at camp today, second day. I know before I even told you this, but Rich Eisen gave you a shout out today. You probably don't even know this yet, but Rich Eisen gave you a shout out via Twitter that you broke the Dillon Gabriel was taking 11 on 11s today. So Rich Eisen gave you a personal shout out today. So kudos to you. But just curious, what was, a couple days in the books now, and we all know this, it's like over glorified. People are keeping stats at every one of these, how many, their completions are it's getting a little crazy, but give us your straight slant. You always do, Daryl. Like what's your analysis so far?
Yeah, it's an interesting process that Kevin Stefanski is going through right now with these quarterbacks, what he's putting them through. I kind of feel like I said this with our afternoon show earlier. I feel like they're protecting Shedeur a little bit. Like I feel like they see the talent there, and they want to make sure they don't put the cart before the horse and have him do or expect him to do too much too fast. He did get some reps today with the twos on offense there, but he's not gotten any reps with the first team offense. I have been fascinated that Dillon Gabriel, these first two practices here in the minicamp, has received those first team reps. And I got to be honest with you, I think he's a better 7-on-7 quarterback than he is 11-on-11. And I say that he did have a good 11-on-11 period today, but most of his success has come in the 7-on-7 drills. And football's not played 7-on-7. So I still have concerns about the height thing with him. And I know that's grossly unfair to pick on a guy just because he's not over 6 feet tall, but I do feel like that it is relevant. Joe Flacco got a couple of reps today, didn't get any team reps yesterday. That is all by Kevin Stefanski's design, and I get it. He's 40 years old. There's nothing for him to prove. You know what you have in Joe Flacco, right? So you might as well use your practice time to really take a look at Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, and of course, Kenny Pickett as well. So that's what Kevin Stefanski's doing. I think that he's done a real nice job being efficient with practice time. He has put Kenny and Joe on one field and then moved Shedeur and Dillon onto the other field and run drills. Today they did, I call it double barrel handoff drills, where they used one field. They had one offensive line here with two quarterbacks and another offensive line next to them and they handed off. They worked on the handoff drills. One side would go, then the next side would go, and then the next side. Yeah, I mean, it was a real efficient way of operating. So I think in that regard, Stefanski's doing a nice job, but it's entirely too premature to tell you who I think is going to start. I have my own preconceived notions, but I don't know that my preconceived notions are actually going to become reality. I have my own personal opinion about what they should do. Doesn't mean that's going to become reality either, but it is, you can definitely feel the intensity as far as the attention being paid to these quarterbacks during these practices. And if you think it's bananas now, just wait until training camp starts at the end of July, when every practice is really going to start to matter, because at some point the reality is they're going to have to pare this competition down. Somebody's going to have to be voted off the island, and they're going to have to pick a starting quarterback at some point.
I agree. Just going to give a quick couple shout outs to some of our sponsors. Obviously, Stadium Mustard, if you don't have it, you need to have it. Pick it up at any of the Northeast Ohio locations at a grocery store, or order it online at stadiummustard.com. Another shout out to our friends over at We Bleed Ohio. That's right. That's where you can get official merch for the Here We Go Brownie Show, plus a lot of cool basketball, baseball, football themed of all your favorite teams in Northeast Ohio. And then, of course, a big shout out to our friends over at City Barbecue. They're going to be supplying all the players this weekend at the National Football High School Hall of Fame with some amazing barbecue. But check them out. They have 6 Northeast Ohio locations. I mean, who doesn't love some amazing barbecue? Yeah, I mean, Daryl, I have my preconceived notions. If you want to win football games, you're probably rolling out with Joe Flacco, and one of these rookies is going to go to the top. But you hit on something to me that was very interesting about Dillon Gabriel, and I have been of this opinion for quite a few years now. The fact that Kyler Murray plays for the Arizona Cardinals at his height, and I don't like it. I saw a playoff game where he just got destroyed and demolished and they took advantage of his size and in that playoff game, and it just neutralized. And I think he's a much better baseball player, and I think he should have taken the contract with the Yankees and went and played baseball. I mean, he's a phenomenal baseball player. Some would say he's better at baseball than he is football. And at the NFL level, the speed of the game is so much quicker and it's so much faster, and you've got to get that ball out. But just with that said, you said the lightning rod of camp. You're out there. How much more? I mean, and you're out there every, OTA, mini camp, training camp. How much more of a national presence is out at camp, that we can't see boots on the ground of national media that's there dissecting every little thing like yourself out there and looking at it? Like, what does that look like even this early in June from a national media standpoint that's out at camp?
Well, for rookie camp, ESPN had sent Kimberly Martin out to cover that. There's a reporter from Yahoo Sports that's out there, was out there the last 2 days, but it has, thankfully, it hasn't been an avalanche of national media descending upon Brady. Because let's be honest about it, outside Shedeur Sanders, the Cleveland Browns are not a compelling national story right now. The reason why the Browns are relevant in a national scope is because of Shedeur, right? And so I would anticipate that unless he wins the starting job, which I don't think is going to happen, I think that the national attention as far as them putting boots on the ground here in Cleveland is going to be right on par with what it usually is during training camp. So, which is by the way, perfectly fine by me. But yeah, I mean, look, Shedeur is, he's the most popular rookie in this rookie class, even though he's a 5th round pick. I believe he's still leading jersey sales among rookies in the National Football League right now. So, anytime I post something about Shedeur on social media, the views go bananas. You post something about Kenny Pickett or Dillon Gabriel or Joe Flacco, and you get but Shedeur, it's just like poof, right? And I give Shedeur a lot of credit. What I don't know where the narrative about him being I'm paraphrasing, or basically being an entitled, spoiled brat. I don't know where that reality lives, because that's not been my experience, both observing him on the field and watching him work, as well as just the general media interactions with him. He comes across to me as very thoughtful, very mature, and someone that is aware that he is a lightning rod for attention. And to be fair, he invites it. He does, music and things like that. So he welcomes that attention. But I don't see, I guess, some of the negativity that surrounded him going through the draft process, and some of the things that the folks in the national media were saying about him, or whatever he did to prompt these unnamed sources, which I love unnamed sources that will rip a guy, will dig into a guy's character without attaching their name to it. And that's what they did to Shedeur in the pre-draft process. But I've not been exposed to that since he's been here. He stays after practice on the field, working with guys, working on his mechanics and things like that. And yeah, there are things with his game that the Browns really do want to work out. I don't want to call them bad habits, but that's the only phrase that comes to mind. So yeah, I just want to be clear. I'm being unfair using that phrase, but that's all, they're just little things with his game and maybe what he does that the coaching staff wants to work out of him a little bit. But yeah, I don't view Shedeur Sanders as this rotten reclaimed bad apple that fell in the 5th round, and the Browns took a chance on this kid. And now it's, can they straighten him out, because he needs to be straightened out. And, I don't have that view and perception of him at all.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, if you listen to the outside echo chamber, you would have thought he was this self-absorbed, entitled kid that got everything he wanted his entire life. But you're right. The way he projects himself, from what we can see through the lens at camp, is he's a humble kid. He's respectful. He makes comments like, if Joe Flacco wants me to rearrange his locker room, I'm fine with it. He's a veteran. He has to be respected. So it is interesting that he dropped as far as he did in this draft. And the Browns for 26 plus years have not, they got it right a couple times, and then with Baker and some of these other guys. But if they got it right in the 5th round, and this guy ends up being the guy that we can go with, we got damn lucky, like that we were able to. And by the way, it's okay if he comes behind a veteran quarterback and learns the ropes and not throw. We just heard from Tim Couch, and thrown to the wolves basically, and get sacked 50 sometimes, and get beat up and thrown under the Steelers bench because I was not ready to play that first hit, because I just wasn't ready. And I think my co-host Allie and I talk about this all the time. The NFL has a real problem of developing quarterbacks, and they have for several years. If you're drafted in the 1st round, you are basically expected to go out and be the starter in week 1. And, you can look at, Josh Allen, he needed a little time to develop as a quarterback, and some of these other guys, but they're thrust into this. I'm just curious about what your thoughts on that are as far as developments of quarterbacks, because I think that is a problem, not just with the Browns, but league wide, where these guys are just, you're Cam Ward, you got to start week 1 and you're thrown to the wolves. And, oh, by the way, if the line's not good, sorry, you're just going to have to run for your life all year. It just kind of blows my mind. But just what your thoughts on the NFL quarterback development league as a whole?
Well, the next quarterback that the Cleveland Browns develop will be the first. Again, unfortunately for them, just look at Tim Couch as the poster child of that. He was thrown into an impossible situation where they get their doors blown off by the Pittsburgh Steelers in that the inaugural return game there. And Carmen Policy and the front office freaked out and benched Ty Detmer and threw Tim Couch to the wolves. And it's a shame. They ruined his career. They really did. Which is why it's so nice to see him now back in the fold with the Browns, and also seeing fans, receive him positively as well. Because I remember those days. There were some really dark days for Tim.
They booed him. They booed him in a game. Yeah.
And the organization. I remember him sitting in his locker crying after a game because it was so much. So, Patrick Mahomes didn't play his first year. And that really worked out well. And that's why I think it's important they don't play Shedeur. Because he's not ready. And I know folks look at that, oh, well, here goes Daryl hating on another quarterback. He's hating on Shedeur. No. I see the talent there. I see the arm talent. I see the ability. But I kind of want them to handle him with kid gloves. I don't want them to throw him to the wolves. Same thing with Dylan Gabriel. I'll be on, my reservations with Dylan aside, like I don't want to see them throw that guy to the wolves just yet either. Let these kids learn. Put Joe Flacco out there. If the season goes down the drain, he's the one that kind of has to take the physical punishment, so to speak. But then there's the other part of, well, what point is there to put Joe Flacco on the field at all this year when you traded for Kenny Pickett? Granted, you gave a 5th round pick in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who, by the way, is the absolute worst quarterback I have ever seen. And to bring in Kenny, for me, this season is about figuring out what you have in your quarterback room outside of Joe Flacco. You put Joe Flacco out there in week 1 to just sell your fans on, hey, look at us, we're trying. Right. But if you put Kenny Pickett out there, that is let's see if this kid's got something. And, maybe we can fix what went wrong in Pittsburgh, because their offense under Canada was a hot mess. He does show the ability to play some ugly football, but he has 6 come from behind wins with the Steelers. So maybe there is a little grit, a little something, something there in the intangible category. And maybe we as an organization can fix whatever needs to be fixed with him. I don't know, but okay, I get it. But yeah, I don't like the idea of playing Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel as rookies this year. Just because it'd be nice if they would develop one of these guys, but
Yeah.
I also understand if they have to, whether it's through injury, whether it's through the season went down the drain. So now let's see what we have, because we have 2 first-round picks in 2026, and we need to know, do we use those picks to support whichever rookie quarterback we like here, or do we combine those picks and have to go trade up in the draft to make sure that we get the top quarterback that's available? So the Browns are in a good but bad spot right now, if that makes sense.
Right. Quick shout out to some of our sponsors, True Fan Travel, guys. That's right. The Browns are going to London this year. First away game across the pond in many years. Check out True Fan Travel to book that. They're also doing a bus trip to Detroit and also to Las Vegas. That's right. The Browns are going to Las Vegas 2 years in a row. And if you use the code Brownies, you get $100 off that. And then our good friends over at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. That's right, the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. Go check them out. They got the Shark Tank over there, all the wonderful things that you can do over there, and enjoy that. And then our good sponsors and friends over at Lady Caroline. That's right, Lady Caroline. It's already out on Lake Erie, taking wonderful trips. By the way, Lady Caroline has lunch and dinner cruises. You can also book it for private cocktail parties or things for your business. But we're actually going to be doing a Here We Go Brownies cruise that'll be coming up. And then another shout out to our great friends over at Primetime Sports. That's right, Primetime Sports. That's where we're going to be doing the signing with Tim Couch and some of those guys at the Belden Village this weekend. All those other players will be there. And then, of course, they are going to have Will Howard down in Hartville on Saturday. So a lot of stuff going down in the Canton area. Will Howard will be back in town. Unfortunately, he went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, but we still love him because he won a national championship with the Ohio State Buckeyes. But, of course, those are going to be with Primetime Sports at their Belden Village store. Russell, go ahead and ask a question real quick of Daryl.
Oh, yeah. You kind of answered the question I have for you, Daryl. Like, this is a no-win situation right now for Shedeur and Dylan Gabriel, knowing that they might not get enough playing time this season and where we have the draft picks for next season. In your opinion, what would you need to see out of this next college football season, quarterback-wise, to say they should draft a quarterback in the top 5? Like, do you have any quarterbacks you're eyeing?
No. I am about taking the best quarterback that's available. Now, there's a part of me that really wants Arch Manning to come out next year, but I don't know that he's going to come out next year.
I agree with that. Yeah.
My thing is the Browns need to position themselves to get the best quarterback in next year's class. They got to keep taking swings at this thing. And so most importantly for them this year, they do kind of have to figure out, hey, is there something with Shedeur, right? Are we able to maybe get some of those habits that we don't like in his game out of them so that he can be the player that a lot of folks believe that he can be? Same thing with Dylan Gabriel or Kenny Pickett, right? So they've got to find out, do we have anything in our own house, on our own roster? And then if the answer to that is no, then okay, we got to be ready to make that big move with those 2 first-round draft picks. Because I'm of the belief that the Browns, unlike years past, they don't need to lose their way into the number 1 pick now. Okay. I think that they're going to be bad enough to just naturally be in the top 10 with their own pick. And then we are basically fans of any team that is playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. And, hopefully that also becomes a top 10 pick, right? And then you can say to whichever team, hey, we are going to give you 2 top 10 picks, plus we'll throw some other sweeteners in there for you as well, so that we can have the number 1 pick in the draft and take our future franchise quarterback. But as we, talked about with Tim, like the pressure that comes with that, there's no guarantee at that either. You know what I mean? Like the hardest thing to project or the hardest part of scouting is the projection part, right? And colleges, they're not in the business of preparing players for the National Football League, especially quarterbacks, right? And so that projection, right? That accurate projection of, okay, this kid is going to be the next Patrick Mahomes. Like, think about that. Patrick Mahomes was picked 12th overall in the draft, did not play as a rookie. And I don't think that there was a soul that was like, oh yeah, this dude's going to like make 6 Super Bowls, win 3 of them, and be like the highest paid player in NFL history, right? I don't think anyone thought that of Patrick Mahomes. Josh Allen. It took Josh Allen 3 years to become the threat that he is. And then ultimately, obviously, last year he won the NFL MVP. Good for him. But I remember the debates we had. But Is it Baker? Is it Josh Allen? Is it one of these other guys, right? So it's so hard. Nobody projected that Josh Allen was going to turn into the player that he is. So that's really the hardest part of this thing. I can't look, if I could, I'd be working for the Browns. I would have fixed this years ago. I'm often wrong. I remember watching Brandon Weeden. They drafted him. He was like 26 or 27 at the time. And I remember I was sitting at home and they did that sports science thing where he's throwing the football at the clay pigeons and they're shooting them. Like, it's not like, someone's just up there just throwing them lightly. They're firing the clay pigeons normally, and he's just blowing them up with footballs. And I'm like, whoa. Then I see him on the practice field and I'm watching the individual drills. I'm watching, 7-on-7. And I'm like, man, even the 11-on-11s, I'm like, they may have accidentally stumbled into something. Then we get to the regular season when defenses were on the field and allowed to play. And they use big, large American flags and, all that. And then it was like, okay, yeah, even I don't know what I'm looking for. That's when I realized I don't know what to look for in my, in scouting a quarterback anyway. So it's a long way of saying I have no idea. You know what I mean? Like none of us do. And you know what? I can be honest with you. I don't know at times that Andrew Berry knows, or a lot of these GMs really, truly know what. I mean, Tom Brady, greatest of all time, at least in the modern football era. You look at Otto Graham, I think there's some argument to be made there. But in this modern Super Bowl era, Tom Brady, he was a 6th-round draft pick. Nobody saw Tom Brady coming. And anyone that said, they're lying to you, okay? Correct. Even the people that drafted him with the New England Patriots had no idea what they were doing at the time. I mean, he was a scrawny kid going through the draft process and that. So, yeah, projecting the greatness is so hard to do. And then obviously, once you get a guy there, you have to have a stable organization and good people around him. The good news is, for whatever faults fans might have with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, they're both grown men. They act like it. They conduct themselves professionally. They know what they're doing, even if you might not agree with moves. And so there is some stability out there for the first time in a very, very, I'd argue, since the team has come back. There's more stability with the Cleveland Browns now than, you'd have to probably go all the way back to Marty Schottenheimer, and even that wasn't all that stable way back then, when they were going to the AFC Championship game every year. So you not only do you have to project correctly, but you have to surround that player with folks that can get the best out of them and help them be successful.
Yeah, if I could speak on that too real quick. When you look at the Steelers, besides hitting on Ben Roethlisberger, they stumbled around in the dark for 2-3 decades.
And they're stumbling around in the dark right now.
Right, correct.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers is in the twilight of his career, even if he comes in and, for the sake of argument, he leads them to another playoff season and probably another wild card weekend exit. But like that's a patch solution. They haven't, been able to. And I would argue that the greatest sin of the Cleveland Browns in the expansion era was not drafting Ben Roethlisberger.
Absolutely.
That was the greatest sin.
Yeah.
But I mean, pre-Ben, post-Ben, same thing. It's really hard to, the Colts got lucky with Peyton Manning. Then they went to Andrew Luck. And then obviously Luck ended up retiring. Now they're wandering in the wilderness. The Packers went from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, right? And then they went to Love after that. Continuity at quarterback. I remember the San Francisco 49ers growing up, right? You had Joe Montana, Steve Young. Steve Young was waiting in the wings. Finally, Montana, they move him out of the way. And then Steve Young, going from one guy to the next is very, very rare. Right. You know what I mean? Miami Dolphins, Dan Marino. They have played as many quarterbacks as the Cleveland Browns have,
right?
Since that era. So it's really hard to do.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like you said, for the Browns, for me, if there is something in Shedeur Sanders, like you said, the talent's there, the arm, you see it, all those things. I do want the Browns to hit a lottery ticket on this guy because this means a lot for the future of the NFL franchise for the Browns for years to come, in my opinion, because if they hit on a guy like Shedeur and he ends up being the guy, right? The guy, the dude, he
right.
balls out on the field. Well, now you do have 2 first-round draft talent picks next year that if you do like what the Houston Texans did to us, purging our picks that we had for Deshaun Watson, and then you start loading up on first-round talent to build around him, right. We're a damn good football team in 2 years. And that's where I think we really should hope for is that Shedeur does hit and that we don't have to get desperate and give away the treasure again to go to the top of the draft. Because, again, I feel like then that sets us back again another year or two before we're actually competing at a high level again. So, I wish the best for Shedeur. And you're right, let's not ruin him and let's let him progress and learn the NFL speed and not be thrown to the wolves in week 1. So
I almost feel like the Browns' next franchise quarterback is going to come from dumb luck. I really do.
I 100% agree with that. 100%.
I just because that's the way it kind of goes in the NFL. How many number 1 overall draft picks have gone on to win a Super Bowl? Not many. There have been some, but just because you're a number 1 pick in the draft, that does not guarantee anything. And usually if you're the first pick in a draft, you're going to a really, really bad team, right? You are going into a messy situation unless that team is traded up to get you, right? That's why I laughed when, as much as I love Travis Hunter in the draft, and he was my guy, I laughed. I couldn't believe Andrew Berry got their first-round pick next year. Okay, that was a bad trade by the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I agree.
And Andrew Berry, absolutely, again, as much as I wanted and loved Travis Hunter, Andrew Berry made the right decision. You take the picks 100%.
Fully agree.
Especially when you have a class that does not have a definitive franchise quarterback available to you, right? Cam Ward, I know he went number 1, but I don't know if that kid works out. Shedeur Sanders went, thought he was going to be a top 5 pick. He ended up going in the 5th round. I don't know if he's going to work out. And again, I'm not throwing shade at Shedeur. I don't know if he's going to work out. Any of these quarterbacks that were drafted this year, don't know if they're going to work out. So I just feel like for the Browns, it's just going to be one of those organic, out of nowhere type of things. And hey, maybe that is Shedeur, right? Because he's a 5th round pick. I don't think it's going to be Dylan Gabriel. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he works out too. I'm not sitting here rooting for or against anyone. It'd be nice if Browns fans, though, could have a player at that position that they could actually buy that jersey and be able to wear that jersey for more than 3 seasons. Right?
Definitely.
I hate to admit that I have a Manziel jersey. I have a Jeff Garcia jersey. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. But you're right, Daryl. It's about every 2 or 3 years, and you can just switch out the number for whatever that starting quarterback is going to be. But you're right. Like, when you look at this, and I was at the draft, and when I heard that the Browns traded, I said, here's the thing. The Browns are 1 player away, right? I think you keep your pick at number 2 if you're 1 player away in this draft, right? Like if we're like, that's the missing link to get us over the hump to the AFC Championship game or deep in the playoffs. But this team isn't 1 player away. And when the Jacksonville Jaguars call and say, hey, by the way, we really like Travis Hunter and we don't really have a star on our team, and this would be really cool to have him, and we'll give you a first-round draft pick. I'm like, you do it because you're right. you're not a player away, and you're like, you ain't going to be good this year. And by the way, it's going to be really good for us in the future.
Yeah, the Jaguars are not a player away, and that was a trade you make when you feel you're a player away. So that was, I think, a pretty significant miscalculation on their part, and again, an excellent job by Andrew Berry to take advantage of that. And when I was earlier talking about the professionalism and the grown men in the room type thing when talking about Berry and Stefanski, if exhibit A of that is the fact that they had agreed to that trade a week before Andrew Berry even held his pre-draft press conference. Okay. That trade was already done.
Yeah.
And nobody knew about it until the night of the draft. About an hour before the draft began, a little buzz started to circulate. Hey, keep an eye on Cleveland and Jacksonville. They might end up doing something. And then obviously that trade did not get consummated until the Browns, or officially consummated, I should say, until the Browns went on the clock. But nobody knew anything. And that's why, tell folks, yeah, I don't agree with every move that Andrew Berry makes. And I do feel like there are some areas he's been deficient. I think he hangs on to his draft picks a little too long. I think that he gives too many guys second chances a little too much, and takes some risk there that I don't feel they can afford to take. But he is a professional at his job. And I would argue he might be the most professional general manager this team has had in a very, very long time. His batting average is not Hall of Fame caliber, but he is absolutely a professional at his job.
Yeah, he's the adult. He's the adult in the room, as I like to say, when it comes to these decisions.
Yeah. I can agree with that as well. I think a lot of GMs get lucky, and it makes their resume look better. But I can agree with that.
Or they walk into really great situations too and take over, right? Like John Dorsey, the foundation was kind of laid for him, and then he took it over the top. Now, his obviously greatest sin was he hired Freddie Kitchens, and well, he probably should have been fired for that, because we know what a disaster that turned out to be. But Tom Heckert did a nice job for a period of time. Eric Mangini's greatest flaw was not that he was not a good head coach, because they went from one of the worst penalized teams in the league to the least penalized team in the league, I should say, under Mangini. But he couldn't subjugate his ego enough to bring in a really good football executive to pick players for him. He had to micromanage it. And well, that's why he only lasted 2 years here. Right. Butch Davis, he was handed a pretty good situation. They made one playoff appearance. Right. And then they got into salary cap trouble and they had to burn a house down. And then you had Chris Palmer, who was right about a lot of stuff when it came to actually team building and putting together an expansion team. But as Chris found out, usually when you go to work for an expansion team as their first head coach, the clock is ticking quickly on you to be fired so the next guy can come in and, enjoy the fruits of the pain and labor that you put in to try and put the pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, I know you've had a busy day. I'm going to let you go relax and enjoy some of your evening. I know you've been going all day. Appreciate you coming on. Obviously, everybody can find you on 92.3 The Fan. You're obviously the beat reporter for those guys. Tell people where they can find you on your socials or any of the wonderful things out there on social media where they can find you.
I don't know. Do I want people to find me on social media? Should I pull a Joe Flacco here?
Well, Rich Eisen found you today and gave you a shout out. So clearly you're able to be found on social media.
I'm a little too active on social media at times, but it's Brown season, so I have to be. You can find me on X at @WriterWrongFan, my last name, and then Wrong Fan. And then pretty much on any other social media, it's just right or wrong. Right. I was contractually obligated to put fan in my Twitter handle. And the funny story there is 30 seconds after I changed it back in 2013, somebody went in and stole right or wrong from me. So I couldn't get it back. So
oh my God, that's terrible.
I lost that, but it's right or wrong pretty much on Instagram, TikTok. I don't know, Threads and Blue
Yeah.
Sky, whatever else is out there. That's if you see right or wrong, 9 out of 10 chances it's probably me.
Right. Well, Daryl, I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing the breaking news, obviously, about the stadium funding today as well. And we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Darryl.
That was Daryl Ryder, the 92.3 The Fan beat reporter. I'm a little biased towards those guys. Love those, love The Fan. But that was, Russ, that was fun. It was fun to catch up with Tim. You could tell like he kind of let his guard down a little bit. I don't know if you saw that. He kind of felt like he was having a fireside chat at home and was enjoying that. But we got a couple more minutes left here, Russell. Kind of run us through the National Football High School Hall of Fame. By the way, guys, I got 6 tickets here that anybody that would like to go to this weekend. It is at Camp McKinley High School, 6 p.m. in Canton, Ohio. I got 6 tickets to anybody that would like to go. Put your comments in the DMs. I got 6 tickets. If you got kids that play football, this will be a really cool, unique opportunity. There'll be a lot of young kids there to see these great athletes, what they did obviously in high school football and college. We're going to give away 6 tickets. Just drop in the comments if you want them. I got them. We'll have those for you. But just give us a little sneak peek. I know I kind of talked about it a little bit, but just what's going on Friday night, Saturday, Sunday with the breakfast. But Russell, give everybody kind of just a shakedown on what's going on.
Okay, real quick, I have actually a group meeting to jump on to in a minute. But so this is our 3rd class. Class is growing. We start the weekend off down in Dover at the Legends football camp hosted by Stump Mitchell, Hanford Dixon. That's 10 a.m.
10 to 1. I'll be there.
10 to 1.
I'm in charge of admissions. That's my job.
Okay, yeah, we started that off, and this is our first association with the youth football camp. So we roll into at 3 p.m. We do our plaque unveil at the Turk, which is part of the McKinley Athletic Center. We reveal a plaque with last year's class. So that would be our 2nd class. We do that at 3, and then at 7 we have a meet and greet. So fans are welcome, media are welcome. We'll have some inductees there. We never know who exactly, but there will be some there at our host hotel, DoubleTree, downtown Canton, 7:00, and that's until it usually ends 9, 10, 11, sometimes midnight, depending on how long everybody wants to hang out. Go ahead.
And then, as I say, Saturday, and then obviously we'll be at the Belden Village.
Yep. Saturday we have the autograph signing at Primetime Sports, Belden Village. That's from noon to 1. We have there Tim Couch, of course, Cornelius Green, Buckeye Great. What else we got on there? Craig James, to name a few. Yeah. That's 12 to 1. There are different prices for signings. You can
anywhere
check that
from $10 to $25 is the most you'll pay for
$25. Yeah. Then we go right to the ceremony. Starts at 6. Doors open at 5. Media, we have red carpet for media. It'll about 2.5 hours. Hopefully, we won't have too long of a speech. We have some inductees who will not be in attendance, but they were blessed us with some videos. So it'll go smooth. We have a special award we're giving to Jim Tressel. That will be our Paul Brown Living Legend Award. And so cool. We're excited about that. And this is the first year we're naming a high school player of the year. And that's the Marcus Dupree National High School Player of the Year. That's going to Tavian St. Clair. Right now he's with the Buckeyes, just graduated, walked the stage. I think about a week ago, and we're very excited about that. We wrap up the night with the VIP after party, VIP tickets. You have to purchase in advance, $75. General admission is $25. Tickets can be purchased on our website at nhsfootballhof.com. And then we end the weekend Sunday morning with a Legends brunch, and that's hosted by Marcus Dupree and Stump Mitchell. That's at Jersey's Centennial Plaza, downtown Canton. And that's free. That's free to get in. Come hang out. Tickets are limited, and those are available on Eventbrite.
Yeah. So give me a fun weekend. Obviously, this is the 3rd annual induction. And of course, some of the alumni will be there from previous inductions as well to support some of the guys that are going to be inducted this year. But everybody, of course, thanks for joining us tonight. We had a fun packed show. We went over, but that's all right. We had a couple great guests on, and it was fun. It was great to catch up with Tim Couch. Look forward to seeing him and all the other players this weekend for the 3rd annual National Football High School Hall of Fame induction. So everybody enjoy the rest of your week, and go Browns.
Go Browns. Thanks for having me.